Hello, and welcome back to the Broken Earth Spoilers podcast, coming at you live from Spoilercon 2020. I have only one very short hour in which to discuss chapter 21 of the 5th season, which is a chapter full of character reveals. So, of course, I had to add both a guest and a live audience to keep things very exciting. To my regular recorded audience, I hope you enjoy the mayhem. And to my live audience, I hope that I can stay focused for you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And yeah, first event of SpoilerCon, no pressure, right? No pressure at all. Remember, everyone, this is a space in which Broken Earth spoilers are free and clear, open season, not so with Wheel of Time. Lesley is working on her first read of Wheel of Time, and though she is past certain early events like the naming of Rand's first horse, there are other things that she has not gotten to. So, Broken Earth spoilers only. And also Cosmere stuff I don't even care about because I don't read it. So, but still. Focus. I would also like to remind you all to follow the Spoilercon rules for respectful and fun conversation in the chat. No abusive caps. No telling me I'm awesome unless you really mean it. You know, the basics. We have a lot to talk about. But first, let's take a short minute to welcome and introduce my guest, Lesley from Stuck on Arrakis, a fellow solo girl podcaster. We have a lot in common, and she doesn't do spoilers. She does first reads, which is a different sort of thing. And I highly encourage you all to check out her podcast in the links after we're done with this episode recording. And speaking of your podcast, would you like to briefly introduce yourself and what you do? And unmute yourself also. That's important.
Sorry. My name's Lesley. I run the Stuck on Arrakis podcast. I am a first-time sci-fi fantasy reader podcast, and I started with the Wheel of Time. So that's what I've been talking about for 2 years. And I just finished Winter's Heart, so I'm starting Crossroads of Twilight now.
Yeah, and it's really fun, guys. I super recommend. If you want to listen to a first-timer having feelings, it's fun. It's real fun.
I do have a lot of feelings, yeah.
So many feelings. Okay, that took not very long by my schedule. Yay. Reminder, talk slowly. Okay, so with that, let us jump into the 5th season, chapter 21, You're Getting the Band Back Together. This section, I picked a section of this chapter because I know we can't do the whole thing in an hour, though we did the whole intro in 1 minute, so I don't know. We'll see. This section that I'm trying to cover today is the section in which Tonki is revealed as Beanoff. Essun is confirmed as Cyanite for the three of us who didn't get it at this point in the story. And Hoa is revealed to be / explains something of how he is a Stone Eater. But I think, Lesley, your notes say that the first thing we need to do is just heap praise and adoration on Tonki. Yep. Because obviously, if you guys are here, you know that Tonki is where it's at.
Yeah. So so I guess my favorite thing about Tonki is that she's trans. And I think that's very, very important representation. I kind of figured that at some point N.K. Jemisin would have some sort of LGBTQA plus character in the series. I wasn't expecting it to be Tonki, but I love that we get that kind of representation. And Tonki is just awesome in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, she is the Doc Brown of this cast.
Yeah, she definitely is. Yeah, and I think it's interesting because she's so awesome because she somehow manages to like break into the fulcrum and sneak around, and she has all of these ideas and theories about what kind of stuff goes on at the fulcrum, and she doesn't really take no for an answer at any point in the series. She just does whatever she wants to.
Yeah, she is in a world that is very, very constrained by rules and order. She is a delightful mold breaker.
Yeah.
Screw your rules. It's so much fun. I mean, even at the opening of the chapter, she's like, so I already have a chisel out. I'm ready to start breaking into the buildings of this new calm we're in. Like, at least like buy the building dinner first or something, right?
You don't have to start chiseling already.
Right.
I will say though that Tonki is more privileged than a lot of the characters in the series, though she is trans, because she comes from a youth caste that is, they have more power. They're in positions of power. And if an origin tried to do the kind of things that she did, they would be punished severely, if not killed. So I think it's important also to acknowledge that Tonki had a better start in life than a lot of our other characters.
More than anyone. I mean, in the reveal for this, she says like, my family has more money than the emperor. So she's like the 1% of the 1% in this world. So she's like, even her peers probably couldn't have gotten away with some of the stuff she pulled.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yet she uses that to be like I'm just going to go be calmless because that's the better way to get in touch with the conspiracy theorist circles that I need to talk to.
Yeah. She's such a multifaceted character for sure.
She has so many of her own reasons for doing what she does too. She's not being coerced. She doesn't have trauma to resolve. She's just freaking curious.
Yep.
I mean, she has trauma, but like her motivations are curiosity driven.
Yeah, it's a real shame that we don't get more of Tonki's background. Maybe N.K. Jemisin will add like some sort of Tonki short story at some point. That would be great.
Yeah, the adventures of Tonki and Hjarka.
Yeah.
After.
I love that relationship too. I was rooting for that so hard.
I didn't see it coming at all, but I empathize more with Tonki than most people in this cast. So I can see why I didn't see the relationship coming until it was literally forced into existence.
Yeah.
So this chapter starts with the reveal of Tonki, which is, I think, why we needed to start with heaping love on the big brainiac of everything, the one who can think through everything and see sideways around situations, and who is literally trying to eviscerate a building 10 minutes into being inside it. But she gets distracted by Essun being like, okay, so you are not Tonki. Tonki, who is not Tonki, which I like. And I think it's interesting that here we get the people who hollowed this place out seem not to have understood that no one forgets they're living in a bizarre building just because the floor is straight. And I think that like it was a different way of looking at the world, right? If this building was created at the end of the shattering or right before the shattering, it's from a very different worldview perspective, right? It's from things have changed since then. And it's kind of appropriate to put that here because like Essun's whole world is tilting and changing. Like the whole new way of looking at the world, like both because of Tonki and because of everything to do with Kostrima, basically.
Yeah.
When did you start thinking that Tonki and Beanoff were the same person?
When it was revealed.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I had no idea. I was like, what?
Yeah, I did not expect that either.
Yeah.
Like, I was really disappointed when Beanoff just left and then we didn't see her again. I'm like, but.
Yeah. Yeah. And somehow I didn't expect her to ever come back. I just was like, okay. Had moved on.
Yeah, but it was also appropriate to get a backstory for Tonki, right? Because Tonki is like, she's so important. It'd be weird to not have any backstory.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, apparently Essun knew her at some level all along. I did not.
Yeah. Yeah, I was completely blown away.
Yeah, and I mean, Tonki thought that it would work on Essun. She had legitimately hoped that Essun would not recognize her, but I'm also like, come on.
Dude, Essun's got her own problems. She doesn't she's not thinking, who is that person every time she meets someone?
It's true. I was also thinking, so Tonki had wanted to run into Essun in this period of time. She had been heading to meet her, right? But Hoa Hoa knows nothing of Tonki. Hoa was locked in a garnet obelisk when Beanoff showed up, and Tonki is, met Hoa just a few days ago or weeks ago or whatever. So I just keep wondering like how Hoa is looking at Essun, this person that he has been following and looking for, and then he's like, who is this sidecast character? Because like he was in stasis when Beanoff was a character, like so he has to come to terms with like, didn't expect that sidekick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how they all converge together, and I loved that they form this kind of friendship and travel companionship as they're trying to figure out what to do with their lives now that the world is ending. And I love the way that it all kind of comes together, because I mean, technically, Tonki has been following or keeping track of Essun the whole time, since the very beginning, like right after they met. And I know Hoa has also been like kind of keeping an eye on her or whatever, because she can control I feel like I'm getting my timeline mixed up, but you know what I mean. Hoa's been interested in her for a while. Right. So it's not technically a coincidence that they all kind of came together, but it's definitely a nice coincidence that they all kind of got along and wanted to go the same direction anyway.
Right. Yeah. It's a coincidence that Hoa and Tonki happen to both be interested in Essun for not contradictory reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm so impressed that Beanoff worked out how to actually manage to follow Damaya like pretty early on. Like she explains it here, like as I was worried you were going to get in trouble, so I had to keep an eye on you. I'm like, you were 12. How did you have the influence to get that going?
Yeah.
I'm assuming just because she's really, really determined to do.
Yeah,
what
and
she does.
really, really rich.
Right.
Yeah,
totally. But it's still impressive dedication, which we should expect from her, but still.
Yeah. But at the same time, like their whole meeting and relationship when she was Damaya happened in such a flash. Like I didn't even realize that Tonki or Beanoff even had that much of an interest in her besides, oh, you're here, let's go explore.
Right. Yeah, it's total coincidence that that's who she ran into. If she had run into any other Grit, the story would be very different.
Yeah.
Really different.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just say as a joining sentence. It's annoying. We get a hint that the geode is powered from orogeny when Essun slams her hands on the table and is almost distracted by the crystals glowing. Almost. Which is fun because you don't really get to see Castrima as a piece of infrastructure until the next book. And it's just this tiny little line in here that you can easily brush by, but it's kind of super relevant to how the second book concludes.
Yeah. Remind me again how Castrima works, because I read it and I kind of got it, but I was also kind of like, oh, well, it's just magic, so whatever.
So Castrima is some kind of orogenically powered lifeboat sort of thing. So all of the mechanisms in it are powered from Origins being around. They don't even have to do anything. They just have to be present. So that indicates to me and the people I've talked with in Discord that it was built by the Silanagistine with whatever weird ley line magic stuff they had going on. And it doesn't require education. It doesn't require deliberateness on the part of the Origin to power it. But I see it as a lifeboat. I honestly see it as we're going to be able to survive getting knocked around through the crust, buried in snow or whatever, and still have air and water. But you have to have Origins with it, right? Ordinary people, they can't, they would just suffocate because the air pumps wouldn't work and the hot water wouldn't flow. So
got it.
I mean, book 2, I'm definitely going to get deep into in that control room scene where Tonki goes and almost gets her arm chopped off, does get it chopped off. I'm going to be really interested to analyze all the little details about how the technology works in that scene.
Yeah, I love that scene.
Yeah.
What a Tonky thing to do.
I know. Just like head first into the bizarre alien science technology. That's brilliant plan. Brilliant.
Showering who? Eating who?
I know, right? And she has superhuman abilities to not think about preserving her own self.
Yeah.
As she says here, you saw what I was like as a child. No subtlety. I'm not good with people. Things, though. Things I can do.
Yeah.
Arguably, she maybe is overestimating her ability to handle mysterious alien technology, but
yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
slightly. And then we have to have a proud moment for it's relevant. History is always relevant. History is always relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Yep.
I'm trying really hard to learn how to like point at the mic. So, but yeah, it is relevant in this case. It's not useless exposition because this is where Tonky very roundaboutly attempts to explain how the obelisks fit into all of this. She just says that's where they built them, which is like, okay, helpful, very specific, way to be specific. But she also does know that's where everything went wrong. Like you have to go back to the sockets in order to understand this. And, you know, Tonky's bad at getting to the point, but that is the point she's getting to.
I'm wondering how she like found out all this information. Does she ever tell us that?
Well, when we see her as Beanoff, she says that she got into like a storeroom or an archive or something of special leadership information, and that's where she saw the floor plan that let her deduce where the fulcrum or where the socket was in the fulcrum. So I would assume that room had more than one artifact in it. But we don't really get a lot of specifics. That's one of Jemison's more hand-wavy world builds. It's like, you fill in the gaps. You can figure it out. Which I love about her writing, but it's also like, I want more data.
I know. I want to know everything there is to know.
Yeah, and it's just one short trilogy. It's terrible.
How dare you?
So then we get the fullness of Tonky's backstory, which is that it is not done for a child of the leaders, first among equals. Their child is not to go into anything other than politics, adjudication, or large-scale merchantry. I can say words. So basically, it's like if we had a hereditary president and they were like, no, you need to continue being a lawyer because all the presidents are lawyers. It's kind of like that. Because it feels like this is an elected sort of system, but it's also a caste-based elected system. And it's also not done for a child who is born a boy to be a girl. And it's interesting, I think, here because we don't get an idea of how socially inappropriate that is versus just politically and like personally inappropriate it is. Like it says it's not done, but we also get the fact that like, oh yeah, they could have rearranged the marriages. Like it only scuttled some marriages. We could have just arranged other ones. Like it's not like it's nearly as out of place as we would think of it being, right? Jemison's not just normalizing transness for the story, she's normalizing transness for the world.
Yeah.
And she's saying, no, there are trans people. And it pisses off their families when they put 10 years of arrangement planning into things before that. But other than that, there's not really a fundamental problem. It's just family logistics, which
and politics
has to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a normal thing for protagonists to suffer.
Yeah.
So I think when I got through that chapter, I imagined that she probably did have a pretty raging, like knockdown fight with her family over becoming a girl and all of that. But I think that was, the culmination of she's too smart, she's too rebellious, she can't say yes to anything from her family,
It's just a phase, probably.
Right. So I imagine that there was a huge knockdown fight for her at one point, but I think that then transness would have been, the last straw rather than, which I mean, it literally says here, but I just imagine it was like an all-night fight, and it makes me sad.
Yeah.
I mean, we even know here she fights a bunch at university too.
Yeah.
I like that she gets sent off to university and just thrives there by fighting with everybody.
Another Tonky thing to do.
Because Tonky will not sit still and not tell you you're an idiot. If you're an idiot, Tonki will let you know.
Yep. And really, who isn't an idiot compared to Tonki?
I mean, facts. Actual facts. And she's been obsessed with the obelisks since we first met her. Presumably since before we first met her, but like she's been obsessed with the obelisks. Not with Sylvangisting technology, not with orogeny, obelisks. That's her obsession. Where do they come from? How do they get messed up? And I really like that because there's such a mysterious thing that people are trained. There's a garbage truck outside my window.
Of course there is.
That's just lovely. And the time it would take me to go, I'm going to go close the window.
I guess I'll entertain you in the meantime. Oh, here she's back already.
Yeah, who needs air circulation? It's fine. Anyway, what I was saying is people are told not to look at the obelisks. People are told to look down, not look at the sky. And here Tonki is 30 years plus obsessed with this thing that nobody is supposed to look at. And
how do you think Tonki understands the entire situation with the moon and it being gone, or do you think she just has like an inkling?
Ooh, I feel like in book 2, Alabaster says, go ask your innovator friend about what a moon is. And Tonki says, nah, I think that happens in book 2. She does know what a satellite is and how gravity works. She knows that gravity, like she understands the principle of gravitational attraction. So I would bet that she knows that there's something like in the sky, but I don't think she knows about the moon. I think that's a missing piece of the puzzle for her. But she knows that the obelisks are important and those are up. So presumably something higher yet.
Yeah, she knows way more than most of the other people in the world.
She probably knows most of what's left to know in the world, honestly, because she's been digging around with unsavory types and finding information like this. She probably knows almost everything there is to know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame that we don't get more Tonki.
But at the same time, she's like probably why the whole plan works. So we get enough of her at least.
True.
Like this part where Essun's like, I died to get away from the fulcrum and you found me? And Tonki says, well, I didn't use mysterious powers of reasoning. I used deduction, which is useful. Yes, for rational science.
Yeah, Tonki's awesome.
And she doesn't need to make stuff up. She just puts things together in interesting ways.
Yeah, she's kind of like the Sherlock Holmes of the piece.
Totally. But with like less fashion sense.
Yeah. True. And less hygiene, probably.
Yeah, well. Next I've got Tonki describing all of her conspiracy theorist buddies, other mests mostly, who've been asking questions no one wants to answer. I'm like imagining like dirty basements and like old pizza. Like, why are you muted again? Don't mute yourself.
I'm sorry. I forgot what I was going to say.
Conspiracy theorists in basements.
Oh yeah, that's how you do it, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, if the government doesn't want you to know something, go off the grid and do unsavory things with unsavory people.
And involve pizza somehow.
Every good conspiracy involves pizza.
Oh yeah.
The fact. And Tonki does not realize how important it is when she points out that multiple obelisks were coming towards Terimo in the last decade. Because, right, she was using the obelisks to track Essun. And she doesn't realize how profoundly upsetting it is when she says, oh yeah, more obelisks started to head your way recently.
Tonki,
she's just like, that's just whatever. I don't know. I'll put together the information. Because presumably Tonki has, well, she knows now that Essun has kids, but at the time she was just like, maybe she's attracting more obelisks for reasons.
I think it's interesting that Essun puts the timeline together and decides that and I am really bad at saying his name. Her son Uchi, is it Uchi?
Uche.
Uche. Okay.
Uche.
She her theory is that the obelisk was going to him, and I'm wondering why she doesn't assume that it's going to Nassun instead. Because she says it started following or going about 2 years ago, and that's also when Uche was born.
Right. Yeah, they've got, so there's the amethyst is the one that Essun was bonded to and was coming to her. And then the other one, the one over the Mers, was coming. It was were there 3 or 2?
I thought there were 2.
Okay. Because yeah, there were 3 origins, 2 obelisks. That makes sense. No, I think that there's a passage when Nassun is thinking about what happened on that day. She says that Uche often talked about falling up.
Oh.
And like it doesn't make sense to her until years later when she's in Found Moon. But yeah, Uche apparently as a kid was like, I'm falling up. So he was connecting to an obelisk.
I wonder how powerful he would have been if he had lived. Like crazy, right?
I would put him at equal to Corundum.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have he didn't have an origin for a father, but still, I mean, Jija had the gene, we know, because one of Jija's family members manifested it. So I would put Uche and Koru in the same bin, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that one is I believe that one ends up being the Sapphire, because I want to say that that's the first one that Nassun tames, but I might just be making that up out of my subconscious.
I don't remember. I don't remember either. That makes sense though.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to make sense. That's the only thing. I only ever say things that make sense. I never say things that are nonsensical. So then it switches to Hoa. So I wonder if we wanted to kind of go to your notes here about how Essun is at this like crossroads before we switch to focusing on Hoa.
Yeah. Do you want me to start?
Yes. I talk too much.
So my favorite part of this entire chapter is that Essun comes to this crossroads in her life where she spent all of her time as an origin since she was taken by Shafa to the Fulcrum, being somebody else's property and not having her own free will and not fitting in and having to hide who she is. But when she gets to Castrima, she doesn't have to do that anymore. They're welcoming of origins. Everybody knows that she's an origin. They're valuable members. I mean, they're the only reason why Castrima can run. So she's almost finding a home. I don't think Essun could have ever had a home there. But she's entering this sort of phase in her life where she has this place where she could just be herself. And at the same time, she's also trying to find her daughter who may or may not be alive. And at some point she has to decide whether she's going to continue to try to find her daughter or if she's going to stay in this place where maybe she could survive the season. And it's a really hard decision for her because there's so much uncertainty around Nassun's whereabouts and if she's even alive anymore. But at the same time, Castrima doesn't really seem to be willing to let her go just on her own, which is a little bit fulcrum-y. But it's just, I can empathize with the kind of, well, I can't really because I've never had a daughter kidnapped and I'm not living through a season. But I can't empathize with having sort of a crossroads in your life where you're unsure about a lot of things and you have to make a decision. And it's not easy, especially when somebody that you love is involved. So I feel like N.K. Jemisin really puts her character through the ringer. And this is a big part of the ringer in this first book.
Making choices.
Yeah.
Because, she gets so much agency taken away. And then when she has the chance to make choices, they're all really, really hard, terrible choices that you have to make. Yeah. And this is very much a crossroads because she has 3 different potential directions, on the compass that she could go from here. And none of them really lead in a good direction, but.
And there's so many people from her past just suddenly appearing again. Alabaster, she sees for the first time since, you know, she killed their child to keep him out of slavery. And they just both kind of went their separate ways without ever saying goodbye.
Right.
And then we have Tonki. Yeah. And then Tonki comes back too. So it's just a lot. And I mean, this is the best place for us to get confirmation that Essun and Damaya are the same person. I mean, this is just like the perfect moment where all of the stuff is coming together, and then all of a sudden she has to make decisions that she's not ready to make.
Yeah, she also meets Lerna here, or not meets,
oh
but
yeah,
rejoins
that's true.
with, which you know, he ends up being a big part of the choices that she makes for the rest of the trilogy, directions that she was never expecting to go at all.
And at the same time, with as far as Lerna's concerned, they had such a weird relationship. And I know that I'm getting like way to the end of the series on this, but I love that they find comfort in each other, even if it's not love or, you know, some sort of lasting partnership. I love that she finds comfort in him because her life is pretty devoid of love and happiness and good news through the series. So I love seeing the two of them, like I said, find comfort with each other in this apocalypse that they're living through.
Yeah, definitely one of my least favorite parts about the ending was that Lerna didn't get to see the end. I was like, what did he do?
I know. I had to read that part like 4 times because I was like, no.
You can't do this.
Yeah.
I guess it proves the point that like you don't have to do bad things to deserve bad things happening to you. You could just be an innocent bystander along for the ride. And
yeah, I would say that's our main lesson from Essun's entire story is that you can be a great person and still have everything, literally everything taken away from you, and continuing to have everything taken away from her.
Yeah, I know. It's even like the happy ending is that she gets a chance to rebuild the world from the ground up. Like, it's so encouraging.
Well, at least her daughter lives, and I guess that's the one good thing that happens to her throughout the series.
True.
Really,
that's true. Nausea survives with only a hand lost to stoning.
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
You could definitely live without a hand.
Yeah, for sure. People do it all the time. People do it all the time. I just want to put it out there to the audience. I'm not actually watching the YouTube chat, but we do have a mod who can send me questions. If any of you guys have questions that we want to cover as we get towards the second half of this, please ask them in chat and they will be shuffled along to me through mysterious means. Coming back to the notes, because
there's literally nothing more than we love than to answer questions about books. So if you have any, let us know.
For sure. I think I want to move into talking about Hala, the other mysterious identity that gets revealed in this section. And basically the gist of it is he is a stone eater unlike any other stone eater that has ever been heard tell of anywhere in the story. We never see anyone like him. We never hear about anyone like him. But he's clearly a stone eater. He's not human. Like, we know that. We've known that ever since he turned a Karkuza into stone. He's not human. He's not Norgine.
Did you expect that he was a stone eater the whole time?
Yeah.
I knew something was up with him, but I couldn't tell what.
Yeah, like the whole like mysterious woman in the prologue, and then this mysterious child that came out of a geode and doesn't have pupils. I'm just like, there's some stone eater stuff that's just going to get explained with him later. I don't know why Essun's being so clueless about this. But, I mean, I know why, but yeah, the first time I saw him, I was like, done. I don't know who these 3 different timelines are about, but that guy's a stone eater.
Yep.
Oh, and then we talk about his crystals. The fact that he apparently has less of the crystals than last time Essun saw the bag of them. She describes them as maybe quartz or maybe gypsum. I'm going to go with definitely quartz because gypsum is really, really soft. Gypsum is like fingernail soft, and he crunches on these like they're rock candy, which like even if we were to try to chew on gypsum, it would be more like paste than like a crunch.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever tried chewing on gypsum, but like seriously, it's like a 2 on the Mohs scale. So
I was hoping we'd get a little geography lesson in this.
I've definitely not a whole lot here, but these are the crystals that we see in the geode, right? So when Hoa is born, he comes out of a geode and he grabs a bunch of crystals from the casing after he gets up and like exists, and he eats a few of them and kind of humanizes himself a little bit, gathers the rest up and takes them with him. And I've been hypothesizing that he has been eating them to level up as this trip has gone on, to like become a little smarter, a little more cognizant of history, like because he's literally put, as he says in the next page, crystalline structures are an effective storage medium. So he's literally putting himself, his mental state, everything about him into these crystals and then nibbling on them and like growing up slightly, like as he does
so
that.
Cool. I love that so much. It's so cool.
I love it too. It's super awesome. But these are definitely very hard crystals.
Yeah.
Like there's no way these are soft crystals. These are real hard. Yeah. And he's just crunching on them. And the rest of them he eats all at once in book 2 because he gets dismembered by other stone eaters, and that's the only way to bring him back effectively, is to give him all of them at once. And then we get adult Hoa in a more traditional stone eater shape,
yeah,
as opposed to this bleeding walking version of himself, because that's the weird thing with him, right, is he can move like a person and like bleed.
And he looked like a person at first. That's why I was like, nah, he's something else.
Right, yeah, he doesn't follow the usual rules, but apparently there's something you can do where if you are less, then you can be more human.
Yeah.
Who knows how many millennia it took them to work that out.
I gotta say, storage rocks are genius. That would be so convenient if you could just like store your memories in some rocks and just chew them.
I mean, computers do store our memories in rocks. We don't get them out by eating them.
Yeah.
But
You're right. You're right.
I mean, it was the best description of computers I've ever seen, is we put lightning into rocks and now they do what we tell them to do.
Yeah.
Exactly what we tell them to do.
Yeah.
I learned this in the context of programming. It was like computers do exactly what you tell them to do because they are rocks with electricity shoved inside them.
Yeah. For now they are.
I know, right? But it's yeah, crystals as a storage mechanism. And I mean, like quantum computing stuff, crystals are like in every explanation I've ever read about that. It's like crystal this and crystal that. So
yeah. Well, all healing rocks would be cool too.
Yeah, I gotta say, guys, as a geologist, I really wish I could tell you that amethyst will cure your headaches, but
yeah.
No. An amethyst stone can be an excellent worry stone while you ride a headache out. That's a different mechanism. But yeah, crystallography it's all about math. It's just math. It's just math. Really wish that healing properties were a thing, but
yeah.
Not gonna underwrite that. Why do you think Hoa wanted to travel with Esun in this way?
So this is something I've been thinking about a lot since I've been, prepping for this event, because I don't know, I just feel like it's almost a little bit manipulative because I think he understands that once she starts using the obelisk that she's going to turn to stone and he's going to eat her. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the only, like, the way that could end their relationship. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like he definitely wanted to appear more like a human so she wouldn't be afraid of him, because stone eaters are terrifying. But he doesn't do that great of job of like hiding all of his stone eater qualities. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I just feel like his intentions weren't always good. Maybe he decided that he really liked her at, towards the end of the series, or, as they met and started to get to know each other. But he definitely was always going to eat her. So
yeah. You think he was in it to use her always? because I mean he doesn't really get like sustenance from eating her,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But he's always in it to get her to use the obelisks, I would think, probably is the goal here. It's like much like Tonki, right? Like I don't really care about you.
Yeah.
I care about your ability to manipulate this particular thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I think is, you know, it's nice that he's got complicated motives, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And he definitely, I wouldn't call him a villain, but I love characters who have their own agency and their own motivations that they keep close to their chest. And I don't, Stone Eaters are, I mean, all of the Stone Eaters that we meet have their own agenda for interacting with human beings, and whether or not those are good it kind of depends on the Stone Eater. But Hoa definitely had his own agenda, and the only reason that he likes Essun is because she can use an obelisk, and that's the kind of power that he needs to have on his side.
Right, and he met her in the process of unlocking him from an obelisk prison, right? So that's a pretty strong resume for being a future obelisk wielder.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, he's one of the six, you know, of the tuners. Like, I mean, as we see, you know, a little bit here, he gets offended when she assumes that he's just like all the others. Like, oh yeah, there's plenty of Stone Eaters here. He's like, no.
Yeah, how is she supposed to know?
Totally different category. And yeah, so he has motives, he has experience, he has perspective. I mean, we don't know how long he was locked in that obelisk. He might have been locked in there since the Shattering season. I don't think so. I think he was probably locked up for like a few thousand years.
Yeah.
You know. So he gets out and is like, all right, another chance at the moon. Let's go find someone. Yeah. But it's clever that he's able to be like, I can get into this woman's head as a child much more easily than as an adult, which I think has as much to do with like not being physically larger, right? I mean, if you're half the size of the person you're trying to convince, they're going to be a little bit more kindly towards you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're cute, you know, if you're a cute little boy.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that it has to be like too creepy, but it's a little creepy how he's like, I can just emulate a child and get taken in. Yeah, it's fine. Because he's seasons old. He knows what he's doing. He's not a child. He shrugs like a child, but he's not a child.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's his motivations are interesting, because we learn eventually that his whole goal really is to get the moon back, so, you know, the seasons will end, right?
Yeah. Like you were saying, it's interesting we have different motives in characters. This war has different motives, but yes, that is the side that he's on.
Yeah, and then you have this like completely opposing view from the Stone Eaters that we should just Nessun should just destroy the world and start over, and he's very persuasive in trying to get her to do exactly that. So it's really cool to see, and I know this is like not the chapter that we're talking about, but it's really cool to see you know, the dichotomy between those two women and their two Stone Eaters / tuner as we make our way towards this like final event.
Yeah, I just saw a question. Who did Hoa piss off to get trapped? And I'm wondering if it was something like Nassun and Steel, where Nassun ended up turning on her Stone Eater and was like, you know what, actually, screw you. I'm going to put you in one of these things instead. I wonder if it was something like that. Because I was so waiting for a big showdown between Nassun and Steel. Like, I just kept waiting for that to turn into a showdown. And it never really did. So, like, I could see that having gone another way with Hoa. And that's why Hoa was stuck in a broken obelisk underneath the seafloor.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder how that works, though. We don't see a Stone Eater being trapped in anything, and we don't really hear how that whole thing worked.
The battle in book 2, I think Essun does trap some of the Stone Eaters in the Castrima crystals.
Oh, you're right.
As you were saying that, I'm like, that does happen.
Yeah.
But it's not in an obelisk.
Yeah.
It's in a Castrima crystal, and it kind of breaks the mechanism of Castrima's stuff. But
yeah, that's unfortunate.
that does suggest that it's possible.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm just going to headcanon that that's what happened.
Yeah,
until we find a better explanation.
It's official.
Pretty much. And then the last thing I have in my notes is to talk about that he's more trustable to Essun than the Castrimans. He's totally untrustable. And as we've talked about, he has very complicated ulterior motives that don't necessarily look good for her survival. And yet the Castrimans are more untrustworthy. So he becomes trustworthy, like by default, basically.
Yeah.
And I just think that she gives her trust very reluctantly.
Yeah, she does.
Essun
I don't blame her. Yeah.
I know.
I don't
right?
blame her.
Who would you trust after her life?
Right. No one.
And yet at the same time, she's like, I have to sleep. So I guess I'll trust the guy that protected me from a Kirkuza that one time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's probably, I mean, I don't really know at what point Hoa starts caring about her, but I mean, he starts protecting her like pretty much immediately. And he becomes, like I said earlier, her traveling companion. And I feel like there were a couple times where Essun was like, maybe I should just ditch this kid because he's a lot of work and it's the end of the world. And I think that all of those little things, him being a child, him needing her help, her feeling like she couldn't just abandon a child, especially after just losing one, is really the only reason that he's even around. Because otherwise, if he was like an adult, she'd be like, see you later. You're way too much work.
Totally.
And you're scary.
Yeah, you could kill me with one hand. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Hoa is... That's an interesting question. When does he start caring about Essun as a person rather than as a tool?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he never is like, doesn't like her, right? He's never like out to get her. But yeah, that transition from you are going to help me end this war and solve this problem I started 40,000 years ago.
Yep.
Through, I'm going to help you become a Stone Eater. I'm going to help you become the Stone Eater version of yourself and help me rebuild the world. Like, clearly he didn't pick that out for her when he met her as Cyanide, right?
Yeah.
Like, the chick that broke me out of the obelisk, totally gonna be my life companion. Totally.
Yeah. I like their relationship a lot. I mean, sometimes I'm like, I don't know about this, but most of the time,
Yeah, the fact that he doesn't explain a lot to her definitely is
weird. Yeah,
it's hard to fully trust a character that's like, I'm telling you what you need to know. Like, But at the same time, as you've seen in Wheel of Time, sometimes characters just have to take other characters on faith.
Yep. Yep. End of the world or something.
Yeah, it's like I've spent decades or centuries or millennia working up to this moment. I can't tell you everything.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And that's super fair. As much as us, the audience, wants more of that. But that's part of why we do spoilers, is so we can have this nice 4-dimensional view of the story that lets us connect the last sentence to the first sentence. And this series, I think, really suits itself well to spoilers for that reason, because the motivations are not clear cut and you don't have everything spelled out. And it's like, well, there is reasons here. I just have to find them.
Yeah. And there's so much packed into 3 books that it would be a disservice to kind of just talk about them piecemeal as you're going through,
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely had so many people come to me and be like, I'm working on book 1, book 2, book 3, and I'm trying to get through it. And the second person voice isn't working for me, or I don't understand what's going on with Solanagist, and I'm like, just keep going. Just keep going.
Yeah.
I was there. I know how you feel. I know it's frustrating, but when you get to the end and then you can read it again, it's so amazing.
Yeah, Solanagist was hard for me to understand too. And I think part of it was just because I was like voraciously reading because I couldn't stop. But it was I don't know. I feel like we don't get a lot of it until the last book. So it wasn't like I had been kind of getting hints. All of it
Right.
just kind of got exposition dumped at once in the coolest way. But it took me a while to figure out what was going on for sure.
Yeah, it's funny doing rereads because then I forget how frustrating some of these chapters are the first time, and then people write me and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm nodding. That was a thing. But
Yeah.
then you go back through the second, third time and you're like, oh my God, this very first Stellantis chapter is like so full of information, and it wasn't there the first time. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting to those chapters in the podcast in like years. At the rate I'm going, it's going to be years.
I feel that.
Yeah, so we have 10 more minutes. So if there's any last minute questions, you guys should submit them now. And I want to just reiterate that Lesley from Stuck on Arrakis is super duper awesome. And you should all go check out her podcast, which is currently mostly Wheel of Time, but will not always be Wheel of Time.
True.
You are planning on other series at some point.
Yeah. In a decade when I finish.
Yeah, well, at least you do your books in like books rather than chapters. So you have hope.
Yeah, that would take forever.
Tell me about it. I have signed up for something like that.
So. Yes, you did.
Yeah, this is a really dense chapter. I'm really glad that I was able to get you on and do this live thing for the character reveal chapter. I mean, this is the chapter when, like, if you were confused about who is who, no more. You're no longer confused.
Yeah. It's funny because this is actually the first time I've been on your podcast, and it just happened to be like live.
Yeah, and like not on purpose. It's just getting ducks in rows for schedules and stuff. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, I guess Spoilercon.
Yeah.
But I did do a fun episode with you. You guys, if anyone here likes reminiscing about childhood books and stuff, you should definitely go check out our collaboration episode on her podcast. We just talked for like 2 hours, I think, about like libraries and childhood books and like what growing up as a nerd was like. I mean, just the whole thing. Very low on spoilers for anything at all. I think there's spoilers for like
children's
Told Bruce doesn't really have spoilers. It's just a wild ride, but you know, it's totally safe for any series, anything like that. And it's really fun. And I definitely am going to have you back on I'm hoping actually I can get you on to finish the rest of this chapter.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Because there's a lot of it, and you know, you're fun to talk to. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that and just finish this later.
Yeah.
And also we're going to do the City We Became collaboration at some point when I
that's been in the plans since March.
Yeah, I only read it once, and I'm like, I need to reread it before I can talk about it. And but that is the beginning of a series that hasn't been finished yet, so we can't truly spoil it. We can only spoil through the end of the book. So I think that could be a really fun thing for us to revisit on and on. Oh, I just got a question. How did the title of your podcast come about?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So a couple of years ago, I was reading Dune, and it was taking me forever because I had a bunch of stuff going on in my life, but it felt like I was just stuck on Dune or stuck on Arrakis because it was taking me so long to get through the book. And I don't know, that just kind of stuck. And a couple of years later, when I started started a podcast, for whatever reason, that just kind of felt right. So sometimes I wonder if I should change it to High on Arrakis, because let's just be real. But I think instead I'm just going to make a series where me and a guest, probably Aradia, get high and talk about stuff. So that might be coming.
I think it's cool you have a podcast title that isn't, you don't have to change it as you do each new series. Because with Broken Earth spoilers, I can't do like Pern spoilers under the Broken Earth title. So
yeah,
yours just gets to keep going and just be the fun house of whatever you want it to be, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, the ironic thing is I have a Dune themed podcast. Like, I feed people to the sandworm at the end of each book discussion. So if I hate them,
yeah, your choices are hilarious.
I feel like I fed Savannah to the sandworm like 4 times now.
Never enough.
But the ironic thing is that I only have one Dune episode, and it literally went up last month. And it's just about the movie. But I'm going to reread Dune and talk about it in the coming months, I guess, before the movie comes out.
I'm excited for that. I've only just gotten a little bit into book 2 of Dune, reading it to my warder. So I'm like, I like Dune, but I've only read the first book and a few chapters.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you think about Dune Messiah. I love hearing what people think about Dune Messiah because it's not really, I think, what you're expecting after the first book. So I'm excited to see what you think when you get to the end.
And Dune is a series, like more even than Broken Earth, that uses a geologic span of time to carry the whole story, right? There's like thousands of years in between plot points. Yep. Mm-hmm. I feel like I got that from Wiki somewhere.
Yeah, and the world is huge. It's the world and the timeline are both enormous because you have like interstellar travel, and you also have thousands of years sometimes between books. So you really get to see how this universe develops over such a long period of time. And I think that's one of the best things about the series, honestly, is, you know, we're world building lovers. We love long series with lots of different world building, and Dune is kind of the ultimate of exactly that, because it's not just, you know, this is one tiny span of time. It's like almost the history of, you know, the galaxy or the universe or whatever.
Yeah, Pern is like that too. It's more like over centuries, but yeah, it's got some long plot arcs.
Yeah. Well, if you reread Pern, then I'm gonna have to read it for the first time.
I hear a podcast potential.
Yes.
And with that, we've got about 5 more minutes. So I'm going to attempt to thank you again and again and again for deigning to come join me and keep this circus on the road for this. Audience, thank you so much for joining. Please, 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 please go check out Stuck on Arrakis and all of her awesomeness, because she's really fun. And
well, I'm honored to be here. I'm so excited that you invited me. This has been such a cool experience, and I'm always happy to do anything with you.
Well, next year, hopefully you can come to all of Spoilercon, because you will have finished Wheel of Time.
It's next. Is it next October?
Yeah.
I might be done. I don't know. It takes me forever to get through a book.
Yeah, I know, but I'm going to push you, because I think it'd be really fun if you could join the server and join the clan and be part of all of the events we have, and, you know, enjoy all of the trivia. And I found this whole community through Wheel of Time Spoilers. I found you through starting a podcast because of Wheel of Time Spoilers. Like, I really want to bring you into the fold.
I know.
Read faster.
I know. I want to be a part of it so bad. That's like the whole reason why I'm like, screw every other series. I'm just reading Wheel of Time, because I can't wait to be a part of this super cool community that I've got a toe in, but there's a lot of places I can't go because of spoilers. So
yeah, well, fortunately, a lot of us spoiler people have found you at this point and are feeding you what we can.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm gonna let you go now.
Thank you guys for having me.
And for the rest of the audience, I thank you so much for joining. Really, really appreciate you all being here. And we're going to cut it now, take a half-hour break, and then we're going to be back to do the panel debating Min's viewings, which is Die on Min's Hill. We're going to debate stuff that Lesley doesn't know about, stuff that she does know about. It's all going to be debated, and it's going to be amazing. And yeah, go check out the Stuck on Arrakis podcast while we take a bio break, and we'll see you back here soon. You can cut us out.